Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Yes, I'm back. Sorry I was away last week. There was a few things going on which meant it probably wasn't a good idea for me to stream. However, this week I'm back. Now, I hope you are all safe and well. It's great to see so many people here tonight already. 53. Wow. Thank you. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, Expander. Now, I'm not going to manage to get through everyone's name. I've seen Bruce GMI. How are you? I watched your video earlier, Bruce. Very sad, but I can see why you're doing it. I also get why they said what they said as well. And actually, you did. And you know, I think, you know, you understand the situation they're in. But just make sure we still see you flying, though, my friend. But, yeah, interesting times indeed. Terminal Insanity, I hope you're good. It's going to be hard to, you know, Terminal Insanity's comment is, I hope we can get together. Now, there is some stuff going on in the US, and I actually recorded a video for that, which wasn't intended to go live on the channel. Actually, it was shared because I was asked to put something together because I support it fully, and I will be sharing that probably on the channel as well. It's hard because, you know, we're not going to change regulation very easily, but it doesn't mean we can't change it at all. But we might talk about that a bit later. But good evening, Bruce. I hope you're well. Robin Duckett, I'm just getting down. 570RC, how are you, my friend? I hope you're safe and well. Great to have you here. Cliff Field, I think it is, or Flaid. How are you? Brian Bron Lewis. I can't quite see from you. My eyesight is shocking. And I am terrible with names. Yes, no, RC, how are you? Clive FPV, how are you? Let's get down, Robin. Sonic, get everyone. Still trying to get a few more. No problem at all. I'm glad you guys had it. Yeah, I did send something over, and obviously I would always support something like that. Took a few takes to get the wording right, and I still don't think I got it right, but it's close. BB Junkie, how are you, my friend? So, we're back tonight on the show. What are we going to talk about? Well, there's we're going to talk about some new products from Foxeer. We've got a new 900 megs Express LRS receiver, and whilst that in itself might not be exciting, I actually am really looking forward to some new 900 megs gear, because I do feel that 900 megs has sort of been falling behind in Express LRS world. Not necessarily elsewhere. And whilst, look, there's a gorilla in the room of 900 megs, and that is Crossfire 868-900. It would be great to see some new hardware from Express RS manufacturers on 900. I'd love to see it. And I think we're starting to see it. I think we are starting to see it. And Foxeer have just released a new receiver. They've also released some thermal cameras, which are frankly weird. And we'll talk about them as well. We've also got some other things. We'll talk a bit about HDZero and 90 Hertz. No, there is not a 90 Hertz VRX, and that's what I want to talk about because people are getting a bit confused with the new Nano 90 camera. It is only supported in the HDZero goggles at the moment. It doesn't work with the VRX modules at all. That isn't even in 90 Hertz mode. It doesn't work in any modes at this time. And I just want to be clear on that. And whilst I don't know the full story, we'll talk about that. We'll talk a bit about some repairs we can now do on the Avata HD VTXs, because there has been stock found for the power regulator, and actually Vista Repair.de, and I've been messaging him back and forth. He's reached out to me on a few things, and I've reached out to him on a few things, and we've been providing some info back and forth, and he's got a supply of regulators in for those who may need them. And there's probably something else in the comments that I've forgotten that I put in the header as well. Let me see. Can I find it? No, I can't. I can't even see what I put in my own header. What else did we put in there? iNav. We've now got a SITL for iNav as well, which I think is very, very cool. Now, I hope everyone is safe and well. If there are any questions on the stream, I will try to answer them as soon as I possibly can. I got my laptop here for the chat. Let me just get across to viewer activity. Now, if you want to give a super chat, they are more than welcome. They are not required for me to answer a question, but your super chat will mean it is seen if you want to. That's all I'm saying. I do try to answer any questions, and if I do miss them, I will apologize. but we'll get through. And I just saw the man himself, Mr. Varty's here, and Sean. Hello, Sean. Hope you're well. Hope you finished with the moving in. Now, I've got myself a cup of tea, as always, and I've got myself some 2 biscuits as well. Tonight, on the overhead, we're going to go overhead biscuit cam, and on the biscuit cam, we've got 2 custard creams. Obviously, got to be a custard creams. Now, just to give you a bit of an update on me and the channel, I didn't go live last week because I was traveling very early the next day. Also, I haven't flown for about 2.5, 3 weeks now. The weather has been shocking. It's always raining on weekends here. And when I go away, the weather's fantastic. It's always the same. Always the same, the weather. But no, look, I've had limited flying. I have, though, been doing lots of stuff in the background. I've been testing a new 3D printer. I was very, very kindly sent a 3D printer by Snapmaker, the Snapmaker 2.0. You guys can't quite see it. It's over here. And if you don't know what the Snapmaker 2.0 is, it's quite an impressive piece of kit. It's a 3-in-1 3D printer, laser engraver, and CNC machine. And I'm actually blown away by this device so far. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it is the best at everything, but it is very good. Actually, I'm quite impressed. Now, it isn't cheap. It's quite an expensive piece of gear, but there's a lot to like about it as well. I need to do more testing. I haven't got to the CNC yet. I'm on the laser etching. So far, we've done the 3D printing and the laser etching. Haven't got to the CNC. Haven't got to the CNC. So far, I've found any major complaints. The printing is decent. I'm not going to say it's the best, but it's not the worst. Out of the box, it worked very well. You know, it's not plug and play in the SAT with swapping between them, but we're going to have to see. 3D printer is it? Yeah, it does 3 things. So, you know, it's quite interesting. I've been working through slowly the modules to test it. I just see Matthew saying, do not buy, not accurate. I haven't got to the CNC yet. I've been intrigued to see, you know, accuracy these days I would expect to be very, very good on anything. Doesn't matter what it is. If the CNC ain't accurate, the 3D printing ain't going to be either. Cannot cut carbon well on the CNC. Yeah, depends what you're looking for, and I haven't got to that yet. Depends how thick. Yeah, I'm going to do carbon plate tests myself. Yeah, it probably... Look, this isn't an out-and-out CNC machine, and it's not an out-and-out 3D printer. It's a mixture of both. And what you often find with these things is they're not necessarily good at everything, but I haven't... Slow as a snail. Yeah, okay, there's always going to be a compromise, but we'll get to that as I'm moving through it. So far, everything I've seen on the printer and the laser I'm happy with. Okay, 1600 milliwatt laser is going to have a limitation. Need a good lathe or good mill. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's bad in anything I've seen. I have both the OG Snap and this one. Yeah, the 2.0 is what I've been testing. The cabinet is enormous for it. It really is. House when I think of CNC. Exactly, Sean. So, we're doing that. And there's some other stuff I've been testing in the background as well. But I haven't been flying for a bit because the weather has been atrocious. Anyway, let's get on with it and let's talk about some new stuff first of all. So, we're going to head to the desktop. And the first thing I want to talk about is Foxeer because they've got some new products out. And the first one I want to talk about is their Express LRS line. And this is their new 915 or 868 receiver for Express LRS. Now, a new receiver in Express LRS isn't always an exciting thing, but what I like is the fact that we're starting to see more 900 megs gear. Now, Wes may be able to tell us more. I'd like to see a TX module from them as well. I really would. But what we now have is a new 915 receiver module, 50 milliwatts telemetry RF power, improved RF design, and 200 hertz refresh rate max as we get on the 900 meg stuff. It looks a nice receiver. It does look a nice receiver. There's not always, obviously, a lot to show on this, but it looks decent. GMI has said a 2-in-1 would be nice. I would love to see an Express LRS 2-in-1. I would love to see an Express LRS 2-in-1. But yeah, it's great to see new 900 megs work. It really is. New 900 meg stuff. It's really nice to see it. And, you know, fair play to Foxeer. I think they make some decent hardware. Nice. This isn't the only manufacturer looking at 900, and I like that. I like that. I'll openly say I would love to see Radio Master make some 900 meg stuff. I love Radio Master as a brand. They've made some really nice gear. Don't get me wrong. They recently have had a bit of a misstep with the modules, with the Ranger, the Nano and the Micro. They are addressing that, although I haven't really seen much public talk of that being fixed. If anyone has had a replacement board from Radio Master, please do let me know. I would love to know outside officially. But Radio Master are solving it. But overall, Radio Master have been absolutely solid. But look, it's nice to see new stuff on Express ELRS. Now, alongside this, they released some, what I would say is another weird product. And that is what you see here on the home screen. And this is 2 or 3 thermal cameras. Now, the first one is what they call the Foxeer FT640 thermal analog CVBS camera at a price of $3,500. And then we have the 384 version, which is $1,999. Now, what's bizarre about these, right, is the fact that they are analog thermal cameras. And what's even more bizarre is the fact that there is no HDMI digital output either, for the likes of using it with Hearlink and other systems from the likes of Yiwi or whatever they're called and a few others. Now, the camera themselves is a bit strange. Now, we do think it is based off another company's camera, which I'll show you in a minute. But what is even more strange is the specs. Because when you look down, right, look on the back, they're showing you the VTX input, and there's a TX and RX, which is a UART, which you'd normally expect a UART for control. It does 50 frames a second output. Now, these are 25 frames a second cameras, but the spec says they're limited to white hot color palette. So when you go on the specification, right, under here, so this is the 384 by 288 thermal resolution, 50 frames a second output, fixed focal, 25 hertz detector. But what's really weird is the image display is only white hot. There is no option for changing the color palette. These are weird cameras. Weird cameras. There's no HDMI. There doesn't appear to be an onboard DVR. There doesn't appear to be much control over the unit at all. And I would love to see some fairly cheap-ish thermal cameras for drones. And look, Foxeer could be the company to do it, but I really don't get who this product is for. It is a thermal camera with analog output only, which heavily limits who's going to be able to use this. At least if it had HDMI as well, it would serve multiple user bases. Do you know what I mean? If it had HDMI, it could do both. But yeah, these are weird cameras. These are really weird cameras. They're just odd. I just don't get it. So we've got multiple models that they've shown on the homepage. There's a 384, a 256, and a 640. And so that's just the thermal resolution. That's all that'll be. Okay. Very strange release. It really is a strange release. An analog thermal camera. I'm really not sure they're going to be any cheaper than a FLIR of that type either. I'm not sure what the price of the FLIRs are, but I don't really think the FLIRs are that dear. Someone did make a comment, and I don't want to say it on the stream, but there is a country in the world that this could be handy for right now, I guess. It's just a weird camera. What's the latency? I'm guessing high. They don't say. Easy integration, high resolution, low consumption. And look, you're not going to have MSX on these because they're not obviously FLIR. It says 25 hertz, 60 frames a second lens. The spec, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Your FLIR, the 640 FLIR would be less than that off the top of my head. FLIR is subject to ITAR though. No, correct, Bruce. You are correct. Yes. Yes, this would be a Chinese-based camera. And I'm guessing it's not a FLIR sensor. But it is strange. And look, there are lots of companies doing fairly decent thermal cameras now. I showed, for those who watched on the channel, that infrared thermal core on the bench. That's very good. There are definitely options for thermal cameras outside of FLIR these days. But this is a weird bit of kit. It's a weird bit of kit. I don't quite get that release. But I thought I'd mention it because it is semi-interesting, but really a bit odd. Really a bit odd. As someone said earlier, the interesting thing is DJI's thermal solutions are very, very good. The Mavic with the MSX capability that they've got, I get it. Yeah, the View Pro Thermal F you could get. Yeah, and there's a lot of options. It just seems a weird release. Get one for review. I would love to get one from review. Look, for me, there's three weird things. Single color palette. If it had all of the color palette options and the ability to control it over the TXRX, that would make real sense. It would be cool. But it just seems weird. Like, I get why it might be limited to white hot. White hot is used predominantly in certain situations, but still, search and rescue, things like that. But I don't know. It's just a weird camera to me. It's just a weird camera. I'm sure. Let's have a look at the price of a FLIR View. I don't know what the pricing of these is in the dollars at the moment. See, look at this. Even if we go FLIR View Pro USA. So what's it in the US? Let's try this, shall we? 640 by 512, 30 hertz, $4,300. And what are they saying for this one? What's the 640? So the 640, yeah, the 640, 4.3 versus their 3.4. It's not a lot in it. It's not a lot in it at all, is there? And you can probably get better pricing than this. 9mm lens. What's on the FLIR? What's on this one? Sorry, 640 specs. 9.1mm lens. Detector type 12 micrometer. I need to move that to there. 17 pixel pitch. Interesting. Yeah, look. It just seems a bit weird. The FLIR says Foxeers are 25 by 25. Yeah, that's an interesting point. It is a smaller camera. But I don't know. It just feels a very, very strange one. Very strange. But yeah, I would like to try it out. I would like to try it out. Now, we think it's a product by another manufacturer. Someone actually found on my Discord server, and I don't know if they're in the chat. I need to find it. Someone actually found a link to what they thought it might be. Let me just find it, if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. We think someone found the type of sensor that it is, which is this one here. It looks like it's this camera by this company, whoever they are. but we could be wrong. But that was just a hint of what it might be. But it's an interesting product nonetheless. I'd love to do thermal FPV. But I think we're probably going to see some better cameras for digital coming on night vision soon. I won't say any more than that, but you probably are going to see a few. Okay, so that's it on the Foxeer news. Nice to see 900 megs on the hardware. Nice to see some thermal stuff. But it'll be being a small compact heat is going to cause issues. Yeah, it's a weird product. I'd like to see it in real life. Now, before I move forward, I just want to say, Quad City Bay Area, thank you for the $2 super chat. Why are digital VTXs less durable than analog? That's a complicated question, but it is a valid one. Okay. As a general term, digital VTXs have a lot more going on. Okay. And the easiest way to explain this is actually by going over to repair.wiki. And the reason I want to show this, and this actually leads me nicely into something, because we'll talk about this, is repairing of digital VTXs. Sean, I've seen it. I'm going to get you in a minute. But digital VTXs have a lot more to go wrong, okay, first of all. But furthermore, they have to have more power stages, they have to have more regulation, and there's just more opportunity for something to fall off the board or get damaged, blow up. However, I have seen a bit of a trend, and I think Carl is amazing, and I really like what Avatar HD are doing, but I think they need to do more work on the crashability or the what's the term I'm thinking of? How fragile their VTXs are. And this is in a number of events. We're seeing pads getting ripped off boards. We're seeing components fall off. And I'm not saying it's poor manufacturing. What I think it is modern day soldering techniques are not great. We're trying to cram these things smaller and smaller. There's a reason we don't like using some of the connectors that are on these things, because they just fall off. But I do think there's more that could be done to help prevent these things from getting damaged so easily. Now, I've been doing some updates on repair.wiki. For instance, if we go to the desktop, you can see it here. And I've just uploaded, actually, the images for the new Avatar Whoop version 2 VTX. So if I go down to repair.wiki, I do a lot of updating on here. And if we go down to Avatar VTX, I've just updated this with the images for the new Whoop version 2. So we've got the original standard VTX up to 6S images. We've got the original Whoop VTX 1S. And now we've got the new smaller Whoop VTX on here as well. Now, what's actually interesting is if I scroll down, I've put some images up on some repair info of where to test the pads. And this is actually quite good to show you what's going on. So, for instance, on this Whoop VTX, you've got a lot going on here. The image will level up in a minute. Thank you very much. You've got your power input up here. And I'm going to want my mouse pointer for this. Okay, so, oh God. There we go. So you got your voltage input here. And on the back of the board, the first thing you've got over here on the 1S is a 3.3 volt regulator. So you're getting 5 volt in, and you've got a 3.3 volt voltage reg. If we go over to the other side of the board, you've then got the system management regulator. That's this Dialog DA9062. Which is a 4-way BEC. It provides 4 outputs for the system processor. We've got 2 0.8 volt outputs, this side here and here. You've got a 1.8 and a 1.2. So if you look at this closely, you've got a 3.3, 1.8, 1.6, 1.2, and 0.8. Now that's on the 1S. On the larger VTX, you've actually got even more. You've got that same output. So you've got that system management IC. So you're going to have 0.8, 0.8, 1.6, 1.2, sorry, and 1.8. You've then got a 3.3 here, providing the 3.3 voltage. And then on the back of the board, down here, you've got a 5-volt regulator. So you've got 4 different regulators on board these VTXs before you even start on the rest of it. So when we talk about failure, there is just so much wrong on them to go wrong. And look, this isn't unique to Avata. This is the Avata board where I talk about that. But if we go over to HDZero, things are very much the same as well. So if we look at the HDZero boards, the race version 2, you've got a voltage regulator here, which is the main input reg, 5 volts. You've got another voltage regulator here. You've got another voltage regulator on this side of the board as well. There's just regulators everywhere on these things. If we go down to this one, actually, where's the other one? Where's the Whoop? The Whoop board. There's loads of regulators on this thing. You've got a regulator here on the back of the board here, the 5-volt one, which is this one here, outputs to there. On this side of the board, you've got a dual regulator here, 0.8, 3.3. You've got another regulator then here. So there is specs all over these things. Now, this is why they're fragile, because we see that there's more to go wrong. Now, I will add bespoke cameras which need to be directed. Yeah, you've got the MIPI. There's so much going on. Now, I will add, I do think Avata and HDZero can do more to make their VDXs better. I've seen too many pads lift for my liking. I know stuff gets ripped off, but I've seen too many pads. I'd like to see more work done on it. Whether we encase them in potting compound, I'd like to see more done. The connections glued as well as soldered, and maybe the board semi-potted. Phototones has mentioned, isn't it the same for FCs or ESCs? Yes, but I will say ESCs seem to be a lot more rigid these days. A lot more capable of being able to put up with it. I think there's work to be done on VTXs. I think there's work to be done. I think there's more that can be done. And this isn't a criticism of the company saying bad things. Look, the Whoop VTX from HDZero is particularly fragile. Potted VTX, yeah. I just think there's more that could be done on this. Now, there is, though, some good news, because this leads me nicely into the good news. Now, if I go back to Avatar, we've got a fairly good understanding of repair on HDZero, and I gained a very good understanding of what goes wrong on the Avatar VTXs. What we didn't have, though, was the ability to repair the damn things because of the lack of components. So, if we look down to the bottom, there's common issues down here, which I've added on these VTXs now. So, for instance, the UART, I've now pinned out where the UART pads go to. So, if you do rip a connector off, you do have areas that you can solder to, and I'm showing that on these boards now as well. So, if you rip this connector off the Avatar, here is where you would be able to solder to be able to update the firmware if you needed to. This is the firmware update port, or the UART. I'm also showing repair and testing info on the VTXs, so where you can get voltages, what you should be getting and where. So this CPS 5333 regulator has been a very common one to fail on the Avatar VTX. This is one we couldn't get. And this shows you where the voltages are. And then this is the system management IC, the Dialog DA9062. And I also show on the new Whoop VTX where you can test to get your voltages on the Dialog. And that's pretty much the same on all of them. And then on the back where you should be getting the voltages as well. Now, the big issue was this regulator, the CPS 5333, because we couldn't find it. This is the regulator here. We knew the pinout, we knew where it was and who it was made by, but we simply couldn't get it. However, what's really good is the guys over at vistarepair.de. If you don't know who they are, it's a gentleman who does do repair on FPV gear, has managed to source stock of the regulator. It's going to be $8. It's not going to be cheap, but he is going to have supply of it in the near future, which is great to see as well. All I would say is, before you replace this regulator, if you think yours is gone, you want to test first because you don't want to be putting $8 in. I will say, unfortunately, this regulator is very susceptible for failing. The dialogue, I've had 3 boards with that regulator is shorted to ground, and that is the one I showed on the thermal video as well, showing you which one failed. It is semi-available, but not great as well. So you want to be checking for shorted inputs and things like that, but it is something to watch for. Now, for those who don't know, there is a lot up on here. I've been adding Avatar. There might be some new stuff going on here soon as well. There's repair information for Avatar. There's also repair information for HDZero VTXs. So I've got that down the bottom here as well. And I've added some stuff down here too, as well as pinout pads for testing the HDZero VTX, the Whoop VTX, and where to check there. Also the testing pads on the Race V1. And I did add, and I don't know if I've done it yet. No, I haven't. I do have images to upload for the serial port for updating the firmware on HDZero as well, just to give you an idea of where they need to go to. And I'll be adding them on you a little bit later. But there's also full-size screenshots of all of the current VTXs on here as well, and some of the cameras. And for the DJI community, don't worry, you've not been left alone. We do have the we do have DJI on here. There's also the HDZero VRX modules on here as well. Teardowns of these. That's the HDZero and the Fat Shark. There's teardowns of both of these on here too, if you need them. But also for DJI users, where are we? We have the teardown FPV goggles version 2, but the O3 air unit as well. So we have all of the images for O3 there as well if we need to, although some of mine are still pasted. I didn't want to clean my one too badly. I need to get some better ones for on you too. But it is great to see that we have got data on these now. It is really good to see. And look, there's a good understanding today of how these systems work and what we can do to repair them. And whilst we can't fix everything, we are much further ahead than we've been in the past. We really are. Now, I just want to say a thank you to Sean for the £5 super chat. Do I find custard creams or chocolate balloons dip in the tea? But I'm not a big biscuit dipper. I'm not a man that likes to dip his end in something warm. Are DJI VTXs more durable? Yes. However, there is a reason for that. And let me show you that reason. They are. VTX number 1, you're going to have a hard time ripping something off the board of this. VTX number 2, again, predominantly covered. Most of the components are safely insulated inside. And component number 3, again, covered in steel. DJI do cover their VTXs very well. So, DJI is better. But there's a reason for that. I would say their build quality is a bit better than all of the others. I do think that's a fair comment to say. I'm for a biscuit. Having done a lot of work on all of the VTXs, I would say the DJIs, the boards are more solid. The quality of the PCB is better. The soldering technique seems better as well. I just mean stuff doesn't peel off the board. You know, some of the stuff you can just pull components off the board. What I will say is this. The quality of the components that DJI use, in my experience, across the board, is of the overall the best quality. I would say the quality of the resistors, the capacitors, you just can tell. They don't separate. Now, that isn't to say other manufacturers are using cheaper components intentionally. But when you look, there are many different types of surface mount resistors. And you can have ones where you can just snap them in half easier, or there are some where they are absolutely solid. And look, DJI's components are generally top notch, I'll be honest. And that's across the board. That's across the board. So that's where my comment is. I think others can do better. So, okay, so that's it on the VTXs. The repair info's up there if you want it as well. We're all there. Now, if you guys have got any questions, I'm going to finish eating this biscuit. Please do put them in the chat and I'll try and answer them. 32 likes. Please do give us a like as well. The O3 short video, 5.1 gigahertz. What's that about? There will be a video coming on that tomorrow. However, let me just say, and let me just show you, but this needs a lot more explanation, and I'm not doing it today because it needs a bit more here and there. Let me just do something. But again, on the desktop, I'm showing you that screenshot there. That is the DJI O3 carrier on 5.190 gigs. That is it armed. And that is it disarmed. As for what this is, I will explain more. And I don't fully know myself, but what I can tell you is something isn't right. I think I might have found a bug. But Axis Flying, Johnny Boy, Axis Flying 3.5 for DJI Avata. Will I be getting one? I don't know how I feel about that mod kit. I think Axis Flying makes some interesting products. I find it really hard to think it's worth it. Why would you not build an O3 quad? I do get it. There are reasons to have a DJI quad. But I don't know. It's not like the DJI frame is terrible. It's really solid. It works well. Yes, it has its quirk where it likes to fall out the sky and they haven't fixed it. It works well for what it does. I just don't know how I feel about that kit. And I don't even know if I'd be willing to do it. That would probably be a video that I would want to be paid for. I'll openly say it up front. Or you're going to have to send me an Avata to do it with as well. And I'd happily send it back. I don't feel it's a mod anyone needs, if that makes sense. I'm not saying I'm not interested in it, but I would not want to mod my Avata, I don't think. So if someone said to me, if Access said, would I be interested in doing it? I'll be honest, I'd want them to send me an Avata to do it on as well. Access made a kit to mitigate the flipping. Sort of. They say it does. But I still think it's a fundamental flight control error. And for those who don't know what this is, let me just show you. And look, I think Access Fly-In do some really nice stuff. I honestly do. Genuinely, I think they do some nice stuff. But I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about this. It's like buying a brand new car and then ripping it apart and putting the engine and everything into your old car. That's how it feels. I don't know. I just don't 100%. I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure. And I'm not saying I'm not interested, but it's... So, for those who don't know what it is... Oh, that's not them. What's their website? Anyone know what their website is? I can't seem to find their website. It's not them. Why can't I find their website? Access Fly-In. What else do they make? Oh, why is caps locks on? What's their website? I cannot find it. That is bizarre. Let me just... I cannot find their website at all, which is bizarre. Let me just find... I found a YouTube video that may have a link to it. Does it? With a... Right, here we go. I'm using his affiliate link to get here. But, okay, so... So this kit, for those who don't know, it is a complete frame kit for the Avata. So you replace the whole frame on your quad. That biscuit's gone. So it's motor. The frame kit includes 4 props, but you can buy different props. Frame kit and motors is $129. I just don't know why. I just don't know why. Okay, but how do you then get Express RS or Beta Flight? You can't. Yeah, the Avata is super durable. As Timberland Anthony just said, the Avata is super terminal. It is super strong. You know, and look, I think they're doing some super interesting stuff. I cannot make the video go full screen. So they're showing you the process. And look, this is a lot of work. It might help the yaw crash. And look, they're rewiring the battery thing. Look, this is... Someone will be doing this with their Avata. There'll be a video of this, and they're showing it. But look, I just don't know why. I don't feel it's a fix to a problem I had. I have already decided the Avata is not a great fast cine-whoop. It's a really great slow cine-whoop. It's a really great cine-whoop for filming in places that I wouldn't usually go, even with another cine-whoop. It's so stable. You've got the DJI software and all of that. I just don't feel the need to turn it into what that is. You're turning it into a traditional whoop. You may as well just build a traditional whoop with O3. I'm sorry, but you may as well. Because look, here's the bonkersness of this. The only benefit in my head to having this, and I'll show you now, is if you want to use the Avata for filming and you want that DJI stability and everything and the camera adjustments and everything in a Cinewhoop package. Yet they're showing it carrying a GoPro. So why? Why bother? May as well just build a bloody Cinewhoop and stick a GoPro on the top of it. It is literally pointless putting an Avata into that and then strapping a GoPro on the top. You may as well just build a normal Cinewhoop with O3 and have that. I don't get it. I just don't get it. It could be a replacement fly high. It could be for people who've broke their ducts. But DJI sell the duct. How much is the duct on the Avata? DJI sell the duct on the Avata. I'm sure they do. DJI Avata. View all. There it is. 25 quid. £25. I just... Yeah, I don't get it. And look, this is not against them. Would I like to build it as a project? Yes. But I am not doing it with my own. Here's my proposal. If Access, I would love to see it and maybe have it change my mind. You're going to have to send me the kit and an Avata and I'll build it and send it back to you. I just don't... It's like buying a high-priced product and trying to turn it into something else. I don't know. It's a weird one, that. Weird one. Someone should make a carbon fiber duct piece. Exactly, Bruce. Why change the whole frame? Why not just release a thinner injected, molded, or carbon fiber duct in itself and keep everything else the same? Why not just do that? 100%. The man talks sense. Why not just make a duct to fit the existing chassis? Yeah, it is someone just said it's a baffling amount of work. A baffling amount of work. I like that. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, yeah, there are lots of people. If it went to 5-inch, there's reasons, but I just don't see why. I don't see why. But no. So, that's that thing. I'm not sure what to make of it myself. So, as for O3 on 5.195 gigahertz, there will be a video on it tomorrow. Keep a lookout on the channel. There's a lot to explain. The Avata would be much better if you didn't need the interconnected. Yeah, I don't need it here. You don't need it connected to fly. You only need it to activate. Once you've activated, you don't need it to fly, unless you're in the US, obviously, and you're boned. But you don't have to update that firmware. But you don't get the new features. So, that's on that one. Okay. Now, thank you, My friend, what's up for the $5 super chat? That's incredible. I have seen the video you sent, mate. Sorry I haven't had a chance to reply. Very cool. Very cool indeed. How did you get one of them in the UK? I didn't think they were available in the UK yet. Naughty, naughty man. Any news on longer range with original ear unit and V2 goggles? Is it possible to do any work on after the update? Allow... Brutus, any news on longer range with original ear unit on V2 goggles? Is it possible to do any work on this after the update that allows goggle work long range? There's going to be nothing from the community on this. Highly unluck. People keep saying, you know, when are the FPV WTF guys going to bring this, that? Look, DJI have pretty much abandoned O3 on that original system. What's really actually interesting, right? I have 2 O3 videos in the can ready to go. One of them was the video that was meant to go live tomorrow, which is actually about the situation with O3 today and where the unresolved things are that we need. Whilst making that, I found something else. So that one's now going to take precedent. There is also a video recorded about, can you even trust DJI with regards to O3? And that is also a super interesting video. And we're going to talk about that as well. And that is around another aspect that people don't always take into account with O3. So there's probably going to be 2 or 3 O3 videos in the next week or so. And look, one of them was completely unexpected because I found this thing in testing for the other video. I happened to just do bench testing on something and go, what? What? 5.1 gigahertz? Why you want 5.195 gigahertz? So we're going to have a video for that. We've then got the second video. And then we'll have the third video a bit later. Any opinion on Mr. Steele's video about DJI Goggles 2? Yeah, look, Steely very kindly came on the stream a couple of weeks ago. He's a great guy. I don't know. Look, there is a lot of confusion around how O3 works. And I don't even know myself if Steely fully understood it with regards to the recording modes and the modes that are available. I'm not saying he doesn't. He's an extremely clever lad. But he's also a guy that I don't think worries about the technical aspects so much. Look, if you're flying O3 in 25, 30, 50, or 60 frames a second mode on the Goggles 2, you're in normal latency mode. That is it. You only get low latency mode on the Goggles 2 in 100 frames a second recording modes. The latency is directly tied to the recording frame rate on the DVR. If you're recording on the DVR and you want low latency mode, you have to record in 100 frames a second, which is close to useless for anyone filming professionally. So in the end, you need to put a GoPro on it. End of. O3 has not solved the problem of not needing a GoPro, because if you want to film in cinematic rates, 25, 30 frames a second, 24, you have to be in normal latency mode. There is no option. The O3 system with the Goggles 2 can only do the low latency mode in 100 frames a second. And that is why I think Steely may have been seeing some of the jitter in, and that is why he probably thought, this ain't working for me and get rid. And that's reality. And that is exactly the same on the Goggles V2 as well. The only difference is you can do 120 frames a second on the Goggles V2. So you got 100 or 120. Can't you just cut? No, you cut the frame rate, you lose, you drop in frames, you lose in cinematic look. It is a compromised problem for professional users. O3 did not fix it for professional users. 5PB, O3 solved the problem for not needing a GoPro for me, for freestyle, but I still need to carry a GoPro for Cinework 107. Yeah, exactly. And that's the reality. If you don't care about frame rates, then it's fine. But if you need to mix the footage, you're gonna be boned. And that's the problem. Clifffield, thank you for the $10 super chat. Thank you for your contributed content. Hopefully it buys you one more further biscuit. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. I really do. That's amazing. Thank you for the super chat. I also want to thank Sean at Geeksvana for his super chat as well. I don't know if I did already. Thank you, Sean. I really, really appreciate it as always. You are a superstar, my friend. I hope you finished your move. Yeah, you know, and look, it's what you want the footage for at the end of the day. If you want the footage for something that you want to mix in with other cameras and you don't want high frame rates, you're stuffed. You're stuffed. And look, and DJI have not helped by hiding the latency mode you're in the software. And this is one thing that I bring up in the video, which I'll be talking about later in the week. And this is the unresolved issues with O3 as of today. Things like no power options, no latency control, no latency visibility. The fact that the fucking binding is a mess. Well, they'll never fix the binding problem, but yeah. The binding problem is what it is. There's no easy way to fix the binding problem. They are stuffed with the binding problem on the V2 goggles because they've backed themselves into a corner a number of years ago. So that'll never change because they'd have to completely rewrite the software. We also, though, now have a much better understanding of why the binding issue happens and what the cause and why on the V2 goggles, for instance. When you change mode, you only have to bind one ear unit back. We now understand that. There's a reason for that, and it's very simple in the end. And let me just find this. I'm going to record this bit because I forgot to hit recording at the start of the stream. So there's a lot of people who don't fully understand why the V2 goggles. I'm going to come off that one. So the V2 goggles, when used in DIY mode with the Vista and the ear unit, have this issue where you lose bindings. Those loss of bindings happens when you swap modes. Now, the reason for this is actually quite simple, but the fix isn't, because there are multiple slots in this, and there are basically multiple different firmwares. Those firmwares, though, do have shared libraries. But when you're switching modes, so O3, Avata, FPV Potato, or DIY mode, the unit is jumping into a different mode. Now, the way binding works on these goggles, on the V1s with the ear units, is as follows. When you first press the binding button for the first time, now this is a loose explanation, on these goggles, it generates an ID based on an algorithm, probably based on its MAC address or serial number, and that ID is given to the goggles and the ear unit. Same ID, goggles and ear unit. So, as long as the ear unit has that ID, it will connect to these goggles. So when you get these both new, there's no ID in this and there's no ID in this. When you bind, the goggles create the ID and share it with the ear unit you're binding to, and the two can communicate. Every subsequent ear unit you bind, your goggles simply say, here's my ID, there you go. So that's why it can connect. That's why it works. However, here's where the issue is. When you swap modes, so think about this. You have binded 5 ear units. All works fine. Every one of them turns on and works. When you swap modes on the goggles V2, because it's swapping modes, DJI blanks out the ID in these goggles. So when you then come back into the mode, the ID on your goggles is blank. Your 5 ear units have the ID, but the goggles don't. So when you try to connect, they don't work. So what you then have to do is rebind. But when you rebind one ear unit, your goggles will regenerate its ID. Remember what I said, that ID will always be the same. It will link to that first ear unit you bind. But as your other ear units already have that ID from the previous time they were bind, they just work because the ID never changes. The problem is, when you change mode on the goggles, it is blanking out its ID. Now, there are slight differences and some quite major differences in how it works in the different modes. For instance, the DIY mode has an ID method that way. We don't fully know how it works on Potato or Avata O3, but we do know in Avata and O3 that restoring the ID alone is not enough to allow communication. What happens with the Avata or O3, for instance, if you were to manually restore the ID on the goggles, and people have done this, it still doesn't connect. You can manually restore the ID on the DIY mode by hacking, and it works. But when you manually restore the ID on O3 and Avata, it does not. And the chances are that that is because those video streams actually have more encryption than the original streams, and the ID is probably also buried and done differently in deeper layers of the software that we don't have access to. Now, in theory, there is a way that you could have these, that if the guys could make a piece of software that when you enter DIY mode, it looks at a lookup table from the SD card that then restores the ID. But the problem is it's only looking like it's only going to work on the DIY mode, and it's going to be a lot of work to do it, and they don't really know how to. At what point does it create the ID? The ID is created when button is pressed. We don't know fully, but basically the binding process creates the ID. That's interesting, and that's not something I've tried. If it's at the point of pressing the button, would you then just need to press the button and all of them would reconnect? That's an interesting idea. I've not tried that. That's an interesting idea. Something to try. Press the button and then just reboot and just see what it does. That's a very interesting point, Gizmo. That is a very, very interesting point. I'll need to try that. I haven't got that many ear units that haven't been upgraded to the new version. But that's the basics of why it happens, so people understand. I've been drinking again and my brain has started to work, lol. Yeah, it's an interesting point. We don't fully understand the process. We know what causes it, though. But it's complicated because DJI are also binding multiple different systems. So that's where it is. Hey, Brandon. Yeah, no problem, mate. The amount of people who watched that video, got halfway through and started going, yeah, you're not doing this, and never watched to the end. Yeah, it would be, and that's where I think Junus and others were looking at it to try and find a way of doing it, but it's not easy. Yeah, the amount of people that watched that. For those who don't know, my Betaflight video where I did it, and I did it as a bit of a story. It's my journey through Betaflight Rescue. I don't quite understand as well. Some people's take from that is that GPS Rescue is worse. I think it's much better. And it was your support that got me there, mate. But yeah, I did the video as a bit of a journey. But I think it's much better. It's a bit weird the way it lands at times. It goes up and down a bit. It comes back. That's a bonus. It's better than it ever did before in Betaflight. But yeah, a lot of people commented on that video. A lot of people commented on that video. And they were like halfway through. No, Goggles 2 is different, David. It's all different. It's fine. But remember, the Goggles 2, you're using different firmware. I have added it as a stick. Already done, Brandon. It's already there. Goggles 2 is fine. The only problem with the Goggles 2, as I say in the video that's coming later this week, is the fact that there's this maddening situation today that if you update all your Vistas to work with your Goggles 2, for instance, that's fine. You can use it with the Goggles 2 and the FPV Remote 2, and that's all great. It all works perfectly. However, if you're a V2 owner and you want to use the DJI Remote system, you have to have the V1 remote on the Vista and E unit and the V2 remote on O3, which is just bloody madness. And I do talk about that in that video as well. Did I try hitting the button, Ian? It's yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But right, the next thing I want to talk about, and if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat section. The next thing I want to talk about is iNav, because there is something quite interesting happening in iNav world, and that is this. We finally have a SITL for iNav coming. Now, for those who don't know what SITL is, it's basically a test environment for iNav, which allows you to run it on software. Now, we've had SITL on ArduPilot for ages, but it is really great to see a SITL coming for iNav. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I haven't tried this myself yet, but I am really looking forward to it. It's going to help with doing testing and stuff like this. And I think it's really good to see. It is a beta at this moment in time. But yeah, really, really interesting to see. Really, really is interesting to see. They're going through the setup there. Let me just find it. And they're then showing you it in action, which is it there. And I just think it's fantastic to see an option for this now here. It's really good. It really, really is good. I haven't tried it myself, and it's one of those things I need to get around to trying. But having that on iNav, it's just going to be really handy for learning how iNav works for those who want to have just a better understanding of it and making sure that they know how the system works and does what they want it to do. So, yeah, really good to see. Really good to see. Is it possible to fly with the Tango 2 and DJI Avata plus goggles? No. You can only use the DJI remote controller with the Avata. That's it. You can only use case use for SITL, testing your own software, but also testing aircraft builds. SITL is a test environment. It's going to be ideal for testing iNav. So if you're building your own larger aircraft and you want to be able to put all the parameters of that into real flight, into the software, you can test it fully without ever leaving the workshop. And then you can then take it out. It helps with stuff like that. You know, the physics environment isn't perfect, but it will certainly help to find out anything fundamental. But it's also good for training as well. DJI goggles too. Yeah. I don't know. There was a lot of whispers around the goggles light and stuff like that, but I'm not sure we're going to see it anytime soon. I'm really not. I'll be honest, I do feel that DJI has forgotten us a bit, and I do talk about this in the video. I think it's been a while since it's been a release, and yeah, they're really not pushing as much as they should be, and that's why I've made a video of the things we need fixed. But before that, there might be a different video of me saying you need to fix this problem because this is huge. Jean-Michel Dupont, welcome. Just found this channel. I'm a complete new to FPV. How are you, my friend? Welcome here. You know, we're still going to be waiting for a lot of stuff. HDOSD, power options, latency mode, visibility, OSD, HDOSD, the remote controller debacle, a bunch of things I talk about. With 60 Hz displays. Yeah, and that's the problem, Curly. You know, there's a number of things here that are not fundamentally great on it. And that's the problem. It's a good product, but Yeah, I think it is, but it's just not visible, is it? Goggles 2 Max. Now, if it's going to be DJI FPV Goggles 2 Pro Plus Black Edition Raw. There you go. Based on all of their product names. Platinum SE. Don't forget Platinum SE. Because that's how DJI like to name things, with D-City like. But yeah, look, they've been very quiet on the drone front. You know, DJI released some new stuff this week. Yeah, don't you dare ask for a white edition. There'll be a white edition as well. Alpine. Raw black edition. Wait, what? Yeah, it'll be a raw black. They have been very quiet on the aerial platforms. They did release some updates this week for the Ronin. You got the Ronin 4D. They released the extension lead for the Ronin 4D. And they released a few other things. But, you know, DJI have been very quiet overall. Very quiet overall. Yeah, well, got raw back is a loose term. They basically have taken it away and now asking you to pay. But it's not their fault. You can only blame Red because they own the patent on it, unfortunately. How that was ever allowed to happen, I don't know, but it did. But yes, they've added back under £1,000 license, the raw option. Cheers, Red. We love you. Hence, Blackmagic had to create Blackmagic Raw. I broke the bind button on my full-size Avatar VTX. Can you show how to jump the button for binding and flashing? Yeah, jumping the button should be straightforward. So, we need to go to repair.wiki. Let's have a look. If not, I've got a VTX in front of me. Let's have a look. So, we want Avatar HD. VTX. So, if it's the full-size VTX, right, it would be these two pads here off the top of my head. Where's that one I just had? There was one here somewhere. Here it is. I'm moving the microphone a minute. And my monitor. Okay, bind button. This side. Right. It should be those two pads. Now, interestingly, I just want to look on the other side. No, there's nothing there. So, let me get me tweezers. You're going to want to be doing those two pads. Off the top of my head, it's going to be those two pads. We're going to have to check this, though, just to make sure. I'm just powering up the multimeter. We're going to continuity. Okay, 1 second. Yes, those two pads. Those two pads. That's what you need to show. Here you go. Found a quicker way. Right, that component there Right, that component there, short it. There you go. It's either side of the button. So that one there to that one there on the multimeter. So to enter binding, short that component. Just put a screwdriver across the top of it, something like that. Short that out, you got binding. Let me just get myself back. There we go. Move my monitor so I can see. There we go. Simple as that. That's a nice, easy way to bind. That would have been a perfectly... sort of fuse on it for people like me. Maztag, I accidentally powered my Walksnail 1S VTX with 2S and it unleashed the magic smoke. The black chick next to the heatsink is charred. Is that something I should replace or bin? Do you mean this one? No, that's not desktop. If you're talking about this one, yeah, you're not going to easily fix it. If it's that one, you're boned. It's doable, but I haven't found stock. It's just not repairable at the moment. I routed my V2, and after that, it randomly starts mid-flight. NAIG is on a fix. The cat father. I've not had that. I would reflash, as someone said. How NAIG to remove the root? Yeah. You have to. There's a script on the website how to do it. You got to put some. There's a specific wording you have to put in. So fpv.wtf wiki. Let me just find it. So you need to put in how to remove. Here you go, uninstalling. So if you go to the wiki down here, you go in and then you go to the command line and do this. WTF, that's simple. And then refresh the firmware. I replaced with HDZero reply. Takes 3S, no problem, problem solved. Did anyone confirm what the USB port is for in the Avatar VRX? No, we've not heard anything. Is there any problems with recording from micro SD card to ear unit on goggles too? Not as far as I'm aware. No, as far as I'm aware, it's pretty. Recording is fine on O3. There's no known issues on O3 at all. Well, there are no real public known issues on O3 yet. I'm about to drop the bomb on that tomorrow. Photos. Okay, how to dispose a damaged Lipo? I'll tell you how I dispose of a damaged Lipo. So I have a bucket of water in my garden. Okay, I toss a damaged Lipo into that bucket. I leave it in there for about 2 months, and then I take it out, make sure that it's completely screwed, and then it gets disposed of from there. But it sits in a bucket of water for a good 2 months. And I make sure it's dead. Usually, I'll be honest, I've put a nail through it before it goes in the bucket of water because I tried to set them on fire. Genuinely, I know it's not a good advice. You shouldn't play with this at home, folks. But I generally still am trying to get a Lipo to go up. I've had plenty puff. I've had plenty expand. But I still haven't had one really, really go up. I would love to get one to properly go up. But what I tend to do is I get a damaged one, I take it to the garden, I've got a piece of timber with a nail in the top, so I stick it on the top, twat it with a hammer and try to get it to go on fire. And then when it sort of disappoints me, I throw it in the bucket of water. I'd like to actually get one fully go up. But yeah, a little salt in the water. But do leave it outside. Yeah, I do. I just keep it. I plugged in reverse polarity. Not nice. No, I think that's probably it. But yeah, I leave them in a bucket of water. I had one in there for like 4 months at one point. It was, they're dead at that point. Would I take it home if it happens in a field? Yeah, I wouldn't want to leave it anyway. The only thing you could do, and look, this isn't something you'd want to do, is if it's well away from grass, you could bury it underground, but not great. Not great idea, really. I've carried a few damaged lipos home very carefully. What I've usually done is had them next to me in the car, so I can grab it and toss it out the window if I need to. But look, you need to be careful. A damaged lipo can go up. Be very, very aware. Be very, very aware. As someone says, they're probably a good idea to have a steel can with you. Something to put it in. Yeah, so you want something to put it in. A safest option would be like an ammo can or something. A biscuit tin, something in the car you can keep it in while you get it home. Yeah. Always carry a bat safe. It's hard. It's hard to know, like, lipo bag. Look, if it goes up, it's going to go up. Yeah, they can be a bomb. Yeah, exactly, Bruce. I took the seals out of mine. Yeah, it's normally damaged when I try to get go up and it just doesn't want to. It's always quite disappointing. Yeah, bat safe with you. It's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Lipos can do dangerous things. But no, how I dispose of is generally that. I think I got about 4 sitting out in the garden on the side that were in buckets for a few months, and they're out now and they're just sitting there. They're dead as a dodo. They won't go up. I've cut half of them in half. Microwave, yeah, Bruce has got a point. Just don't turn it on. Make sure you cut the plug off first. Yeah, microwaves are very fireproof. And they got venting as well, which is the good thing with a microwave. So, hasn't failed me yet. Bruce is on form tonight. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to call it there tonight. I want to thank you all for spending some time with me on the channel once again on a Sunday night. We plan to be back same time, same place next week. I want to thank everyone who has donated to the Super Chats tonight. It really is massively appreciated. There's a lot to come this week. There's some good stuff, bad stuff. I'm giving DJI a kicking this week, unintentionally, but hey-ho, that's the way it goes. But look, from me, I want to say a massive thank you for the Super Chats. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I really do appreciate it. Before you go, though, because there is 177 of you, please do give it a like. Finally, I just want to say a massive thank you to all of my Patreons. I would not be able to do what I do on this channel without the support of my Patreons, and I want to say a massive thank you from me to you. Everyone who's a patron of the channel, you help keep us going. We would not be able to do without your support. And whilst I don't often say thank you to the patrons or do things for the patrons, I just want to say a big thank you from me. Anyway, that's it from me. We're back again, same time, same place next week. Look after yourselves. If you don't know, I got a Discord server. Come over, say hello. If you've got any questions, pop in there as well. Now I'm going to try and end this stream as gracefully as I can. So I've got to find the button. You can never end a stream gracefully. So you press number 1, stay safe, and I will. Here we go. Speak to you soon.